Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be talking about fetal development while your baby is in utero. Our brain is made up of several large structures, and those structures communicate by sending signals to and from different parts of our body and between the various structures. The first 2 years of life show a massive surge in dendrites and connections between these structures. This process is called transient exuberance. More pruning of neurons and information is gained at this time than at any other time in a person's life. But when does the brain actually truly develop? According to the How Possible video in this week's resources, there are 5 structures that must develop while the fetus is in utero for them to be able to function in the outside world. So this means like all of their systems that kind of keep them alive. So the cerebrum, which is in charge of thinking and feeling, the cerebellum in charge of motor function, the brainstem, which regulates things like the heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing, and then we have the pituitary gland, which regulates hormone release in the body, and finally we have the hypothalamus, which is in charge of hunger, sleep, emotions, and thirst. So, you can see how important each of these individual structures are and how they might need to work together to make a functioning human being. This complicated process can be traced back to the zygote stages of development. So 3 weeks after conception, what will eventually become the brain forms the neural plate. Shortly after this stage, the first neurons begin to emerge, called pioneer neurons, according to the 2006 article about fetal brain development published in the European Journal of Radiology. As the zygote progresses in their development, the neural plate eventually forms the neural tube. This is the structure that becomes the spinal cord and the brain. About 6 weeks after conception, the neural tube forms the hindbrain, the midbrain, and the forebrain. These structures eventually become the 5 primary brain structures. However, there's still a lot more developing that needs to happen for the fetus to function and survive in the outside world. By the 9th week, the beginning of the fetal period of development, the fetal brain's ability to produce neurons increases immensely. The fetal period lasts until the end of gestation. At this point, the primary structures of the brain are essentially complete. When you look at the brain on the MRI scans, it looks like a brain. It's not just like the flat neural plate that you see at the beginning of gestation. While the hemispheres are being formed at this point, they will not be clearly defined until the 19th gestational week. And one of the things that happens to make these 2 hemispheres more defined is the formation of the sulci and the gyral folding. This begins about the 9th week, and these folds will eventually become the mature folding seen in a fully formed human brain. So basically, these folds offer more surface area of the brain, creating more connections. Myelination begins near the start of the 3rd trimester at about 28 gestational weeks, making it essential that the mother is getting omega-3s in her diet. These omega-3s will aid in the production and the connection of axons, allowing the brain to communicate with the rest of the body and brain. Early myelination serves to aid in things such as reflexes, whereas later in the pregnancy, 38 weeks, myelination is starting to focus more on things such as hunger, basically what will supplement the living outside of the uterus. As neurons are produced, they travel to different parts of the brain. So the earliest neurons produced will travel the furthest to the deepest parts of the cortex. And the newest neurons will be more at the surface. The previous synaptic exuberance is then followed by a massive neural pruning. At this stage of apostosis, massive amounts of neurons are pruned. This normal cell death serves several functions, primarily finalizing connections, making them stronger, and correcting mistakes in the initial neural migrations. So at birth, according to the video in our resources, the How Possible video, the infant has a functional brain once they're born, but the development will continue well into childhood. While neurogenesis slows after birth, it still exists. So its function is to strengthen the senses that will eventually improve things like vision. And myelination actually continues till the second birthday. Overall, this complicated process makes up the early development of the brain in the fetus. So thank you.